Here's the 0-1. This is going to be a tough play. Bryant, the Cubs win the World Series. Bryant makes the play. It's over. And the Cubs have finally won it all. 8-7-10.
I think it's finally the end of the road of Cubs legend Kris Bryant.
Kris Bryant, you're like Mr. Everything, man. Rookie of the year, you hit home runs, you led the league in runs scored, you play everywhere on the field. There's got to be something you don't do well.
Sadly, the answer to that question is he doesn't stay on the field. That is the one thing that's been hampering the Kris Bryant career. As I said, I think it's the end of the road for Kris Bryant. I feel like there's not a single player. Nope, scratch that. Sammy Sosa. In my opinion, Sammy Sosa is the only major league player to produce 4 seasons of just absolute legendary status. I mean, over a course of 4 years, what was it? Like 230, 240 career home runs from Sammy Sosa. When you look at someone like Kris Bryant, he did something that no other player will ever do. It will never be accomplished again. We're talking collegiate player of the year. We're talking about minor league player of the year. He went on to become rookie of the year, and then he went on to be National League most valuable player. 4 years in a row to have that type of stature as a ball player, legendary status. This man was supposed to go down as one of the greatest, not only one of the greatest Cubs of all time, but one of the best players of all time. Just like you heard in the interview, man plays all over the field, all 3 outfield positions, first base, third base. Absolutely, I don't want to say an excellent defender, but he's more than capable of holding his own. Power-wise, 30-plus home runs a year with his capabilities. Now, Joe Madden kind of screwed him up over the years because he kept putting him at the number 2 slot in the lineup. Now, given you want Kris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo to bat 2-3 in your lineup because you want 2 of your biggest mega power hitters to bat in the first inning. But by putting him at number 2, you were also taking the opportunity to drive in runs off the plate. So instead of being this perennial 30 home run, 100 RBI guy, you're basically getting a 25 home run, maybe 75 RBI Kris Bryant. Now, here's the odd thing about Kris Bryant. He really shot himself in the foot, and there are a lot of ball players that kind of fall under this category. Kris Bryant, the Cubs had already offered him 9 years and north of $200 million. Okay. Now, this was at a time in his career when his career had gone on a straight downfall. From 2017 onward, you can see year after year how his numbers just declined. Walks went down, batting average went down, RBIs went down, home runs went down, strikeouts went up. Okay, his moving on to disabled list went up. At that point, this major downfall of his major league career was incredible. And for him to turn down a $200 million contract extension was absolutely ludicrous. When you're a major league ball player, you dream of getting a $200 million contract. That's always the goal for any professional ball player. And at such a young age, if you were to have signed it with the Cubs, he probably would have been a lifelong Cub. Now you're reaching Derek Jeter status, okay? He's already won a World Series with the Cubs. He was already in the playoffs every single year as a member of the Cubs. He was drafted by the Cubs, came up through our farm system, major leagues. Such a huge, impactful player. And I think because he was drafted so high, because he came up through the organization and he was a run producer, solid power hitter, that's the only reason the Cubs upper management decided to go ahead and offer him such a huge contract. But when you've got Scott Boras as your agent, he thought he was going to hit the open market and get $300, maybe even $400 million. Well, it didn't work out for him. At $400 million, Not even close. He ended up signing with the Colorado Rockies for 7 years and $182 million. And if you are in Colorado, that's probably your most hated contract in Major League history, because Kris Bryant, over the course of 2.5 years, has played less than one full season on the Major League roster. Home runs, RBIs, I think he's looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 home runs, 17 home runs, probably around 50 or 60 RBIs over the course of, I believe, 146 ball games. He is currently serving his 7th stay on the injured list. So once upon a time, yes, he was a legendary Cubs ball player, and I don't know if him staying with the Cubs would have necessarily negated all these future injuries, but with his ongoing back problems, he's had ankle and feet problems. Health-wise, it just isn't there, and he has one of the most massive contracts in Major League history, and he is basically entering Cubs Jason Hayward status. Now, the one thing I think a lot of us Cubs fans would agree on is whether or not Jason Hayward was a key element of the 2016 World Series championship team. I think a lot of thought goes into those ball players who are team leaders. He was still a relatively young man. They expected this 25, 27 home run a year, maybe 75 to 90 RBIs a year from Jason Hayward. They just didn't get it. But in his first couple years, he was a Gold Glove winner. His first year as a member of the Cubs helps lead them to the World Series. And his speech pumped the team up enough to get them over the hump to win their first championship in 108 years. One of the greatest moments of my life is being able to watch that replay over and over again of that ground ball at third base, watching Kris Bryant scoop it with that big smile on his face and dishing it out to Anthony Rizzo for the game winner. Being a Cubs fan for 100 years, over 70 years since the Cubs' last World Series appearance, no team, no fan of professional organized sports has suffered more than the Chicago Cubs. And winning that championship meant everything. 3 straight years in the National League Championship Series. So a lot of that we have to give credit to guys like Anthony Rizzo, to Kris Bryant, who were just absolutely legendary characters on the corners. You throw in Javier Baez, you throw in Ben Zobrist, we had exactly what we needed. John Lester leading the way on the mound. But this is a video about Kris Bryant, and the writing is on the wall, guys. He is just not at a point in his career where he's healthy enough to stay on the field anymore. The Rockies did not want to see him at third base. They decided to push him into the outfield, which I think probably relegated him to first base, because his injuries just became superior out in the outfield. And first base, recently in Los Angeles, he caught a ball. Even playing first base is hampering his ability to stay on the field. There is a lot of talk about the Colorado Rockies just eating the contract and releasing him less than 3 years into his 7-year contract. And, at $27 or so million per season, nobody wants to eat that money, but you can't do anything with Kris Bryant. And because he was such a beloved character, beloved position player for the Cubs, I've always been a huge Kris Bryant fan. But at the same time, I knew that he was shooting himself in his own foot when he decided to go out and try to get all of the money in the world, when he should have known, based on his performance over the years, it just wasn't there. the Cubs were willing to pay up because of what he had done for them previously. And that's the problem with a lot of organizations. They pay for past success, not what you're going to give in the current or future, in the present or future. So we're going to look at a couple more videos. We're going to close it out with one of my favorite videos of all time. And that's going to be the Kris Bryant that I like to remember. But at this point in his career, I don't even think he'll even be able to catch on with another organization, even on a minor league contract. It just doesn't make sense. When you're unhealthy to his extent, 32 years old, I think it's the end of the road for Kris Bryant. So let's take a look at a couple more clips, guys, before we call it a day.
Tell me what you've learned, the burden of history in this place, and the passion of the fans.
For me, being young, I guess, I try not to really think of the bad history. No one wants to think about that. But obviously we know there hasn't been a World Series here in a while. So you hear that, but you hear more of the good history here, just the fans and how passionate they are about the team, win or lose, how much fun it is to play here. And, when you think of the Chicago Cubs and playing in Wrigley Field, I mean, who wouldn't want to be a part of that? To get a chance to play on a field like this is a dream come true.
You are the future.
One of the hardest things to hear is that one segment right there at the end. You are the future. And 100%, I felt like once the Cubs established their dynasty, guys like Javier Baez, Kris Bryant, and Anthony Rizzo, I thought all three of them were going to be a part of the Cubs, not only to this day, but 10 years from now, that they were all going to retire as Cubs. And to see guys like Javier Baez sign this big contract with the Detroit Tigers, again, nowhere near the money he was offered from the Cubs. Yeah, like 6 years, 140 million for the Tigers. I think the Cubs offered him over 200 million that he declined. Anthony Rizzo, I think Anthony Rizzo is one of those guys that would have legitimately re-signed with the Cubs if the opportunity presented itself. But the Cubs kept trying to, cheapskate cheap out on the face of their franchise, and he was shipped off to New York. And he's dropping bombs in the Yankees uniform now, being part of one of the greatest teams in baseball this season. I know I keep reading about the Yankees because it always comes up on the feed. And, even though I'm a Cubs fan, I'm a baseball fan, just as much as anything. So, and there's always talk about Yankees trying to find a replacement for Anthony Rizzo. I'm like, the man's a gold glover. He's a power hitter, 30 homer, 100 RBI guy, gold glove defense at first. Well, what else do you need? With all that other power surrounding him, I mean, you don't need to replace him, not one bit. You see Kris Bryant get traded to San Francisco, what was in the 2021 season. And, he had a subpar showing with the Giants. Not surprising. I mean, like I said, from 2017 onward, every year, Bryant, his numbers just decline like crazy. And when he signed that massive contract, 7 years, 182 million with Colorado, I to this day, I can't understand it. Not only did Colorado almost go up to almost 200 mil for this guy that's seen a steep decline in his abilities, but you had Nolan Arenado, the face of your franchise, a perennial 40 homer, 120 RBI guy, a constant Gold Glove winner year after year after year at third base. You trade him to the Cardinals and you replace him with Kris freaking Bryant. There was absolutely no need to replace Nolan Arenado. You could have re-signed him. And in fact, I think he still had a couple years left on his contract, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, they could have used that money and then some and given him an even bigger contract. So adding Kris Bryant, especially on a rebuilding organization, was kind of ludicrous. And to this day, I mean, the Rockies are what? The worst team in the National League? And if the White Sox weren't the White Sox, I mean, the Rockies probably be the worst organization, the worst team in baseball this season. But the whole comment, you are the future, I got to admit, man, that just kind of almost brings a tear to your eye because you just think about what could have been. And I'm mad at Kris Bryant because I kind of felt like he would, here is another millionaire being really selfish, trying to squeeze out every penny. He could have stayed with the Cubs, and I'm like, you know what? You kind of, I don't want to say that, but you stop supporting the team, or you stop supporting the player, and at some point, you just kind of feel like you want them to fail. It's like, you know what? I'm glad my team didn't resign you, and this is exactly why. Now you're some other organization's headache. But at the end of the day, man, this is one of those players that you admire and you respect, and you really hate to see it go down this bad. If he was a 220 hitter, putting up 25 home runs, 80 RBIs, not worth no 27, almost $30 million a year. Fail definitely, but it's not a huge, slap in the face type of failure. This is like Baltimore and Chris. Was it Chris Johnson? Am I thinking of? This is ludicrous. Where you guys are hitting like 180. That's exactly what Kris Bryant's doing right now. I think he's hitting the 180 range. I'm gonna get up another video or two, guys, and that's going to be it for this particular video.
By the end of 2016, Kris Bryant was on top of the baseball world. In just his first 2 seasons in the big leagues, he managed to win Rookie of the Year, Most Valuable Player, and help guide the Cubs to their first World Series championship in over 100 years. But flash forward to present day, and he is struggling to perform on one of the worst teams in baseball, getting booed in front of his home fans, and has started to receive death threats on social media. Bryant played a total of just 80 games, but unlike the previous year where he posted great numbers in his limited playing time, 2023 was the worst season of his career. He hit .233 with a .680 OPS and hit a homer on average of every 33.5 plate appearances.
A special shout out to 3-0 Green Light on this previous video clip. A lot of really good and important information. If you are a Kris Bryant fan, a Colorado fan, Chicago Cubs fan, or if you're just an overall baseball fan, you would like to know more about the Kris Bryant story or the tragedy of Kris Bryant, check out 3-0 Green Light. This was an amazing video, but I was only able to pull a few clips that I thought were really necessary, pertaining to the struggles of Kris Bryant. Now, you also notice that 80 games played in 2023 and a .230 average. This is bench player contributions to the team, and $27 million. I'm sorry, but I don't care if it's 300 at bats, 600 at bats, or if it's 50 at bats. You produce 10 home runs over the course of a season. You might as well just write a check right back to the organization, because that is just absolutely pitiful. I am thrilled that Kris Bryant was traded away. No, I can't say that. That's inaccurate information. Guys like Javi Baez and Anthony Rizzo, Kris Bryant, like I said, man, they were the future of the Cubs organization. I was not thrilled out one bit that they were traded. But seeing their performance, hindsight, I would have loved to have kept them. But, hindsight, keep seeing what they're doing now. I mean, it's the Cubs really lucked out. Now, I don't know if that was just sheer stinginess and unwillingness to fork over some extra cash for, these players that took you to the postseason year after year and won you a world championship, or if they just saw something either in through the medics or through their gameplay. I don't know. But it seemed to work out for the Cubs because they don't have $600 million essentially tied up to 3 players. Now, Kris Bryant, like I said, I don't know if it's karma, because he is such an awesome guy. Anytime you hear him talk, interviews, what have you, he's such a down to earth guy, and you don't want people like that to have any kind of struggles, But it's at a point where, as I said before, you're a multimillionaire. You've got more money than God. I mean, is an extra $30 million or so going to really make a difference? They're talking about Juan Soto getting $400 million this offseason. if the Pittsburgh Pirates come out and offer him $400 million, and let's say the New York Yankees come out and offer him in the same 10 years, but $300 million. Yeah, you could say, well, it's $100 million more money, but Pittsburgh Pirates are generally a last place team year after year, and the New York Yankees are perennial postseason contenders year after year. So $300 million is just as much as $400 million. You know, you're not going to spend that money in the course of your lifetime. So, you know, Kris Bryant didn't have to go out and jump for every red cent. And I think in the end, it bit him in the ass. I think the Cubs fans would have understood a little bit more, would have had a little bit more patience, but you're supposed to be a superstar in a new organization, supposed to turn them around, and this is what you're getting. So, you know, you sowed the seeds essentially. All right, guys. So I do have one more video I want to play. I'm actually going to play it in its entirety. This video comes from a channel called Oak Creek TV. And I strongly recommend you guys go onto that page and check this video out. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if necessary. This is one of the most important videos on YouTube, in my personal opinion. Oak Creek TV, they did a fantastic job editing this particular video, and it surrounds the Cubs 2016 World Series championship. You know, Kris Bryant, he might be a Rocky these last few years, but to me, he will always live in Cub fandom, live in our hearts and in our memories, and of course, as a legendary character that helped lead the Cubs to their first World Series championship in over a century. So, have to sport my Kris Bryant jersey today. So I want to show this video in its entirety because, like I said, it kind of brings a tear to your eye. It's such a beautiful and well-crafted video that I feel like doing any edits on this already perfect video would just not do it justice. So I am going to close my video today with the last clip, and hopefully you guys like it. And until next time, guys, I'll talk to you in the comments, and enjoy the upcoming clip.
That's a base hit. Rizzo scores. Zobrist is held. 8-6. Into center field, another hit. Here comes Guyer. The throw into second. It's a one-run game.
I hate this. Two more strikes.
recycle? Yeah, recycle that for me, will you? Thanks a lot.
As I said, guys, that will always be my Kris Bryant. That Kris Bryant that fielded the last play of the game. Regardless of how bad he struggled nowadays, that is a moment that will live on forever. And like I said, this video, man, it gets you choked up a little bit. It's so well done. Again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next video and talking to you in the comments. Goodbye, everybody.